President, are we going to retaliate against Iran?
Mr. President, are you going to strike back?
Mr. President, will you strike Iran, sir? Will you?
Watch it.
We'll soon find out. Is that what you said?
A United States surveillance drone is struck down by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. The United States says the drone was in their territory or international waters, which is pretty much U.S. territory, and Iran says it was in theirs. The only thing that the media can ask is, are you going to strike Iran? Are you going to get into a military conflict with Iran? Do better. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. And if you're thinking Groundhog's Day because you've seen this video once before, you are not crazy. You're not insane. I've done this video once before and I hated this video. Hated that video. So let's do it one more time. So the United States, or a U.S. surveillance drone, and I want to emphasize that term surveillance drone, is shot down over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the media, their basic question is, Mr. President, are you going to strike Iran? The president, for his part, seems to be downplaying this notion of an airstrike, saying that it was most likely a mistake. Now, the consequences of that mistake is hard to know, but the president seems to be downplaying it. The military seems to say this is not a throwaway drone, and the military, to some degree, is right. This drone supposedly was more expensive than an F-35 airplane. Stealth drone, no less. Seems to be, stealth drone, no less. And just to give the snapshots, because I wanted to get into the politics of it. Iranian forces shoot down a U.S. surveillance drone Wednesday evening, escalating over a tense situation. Right. The drone was a U.S. Navy Broad Area Maritime Surveillance aircraft, RQ-4A Global Hawk high altitude, long endurance drone. One of the key points of this drone is that it's able to fly at absurdly high limits, apparently 65,000 to 85,000 feet. It doesn't necessarily have much evasion technology. That is the evasion technology. So it doesn't have weapons and all this other stuff. It's mainly for surveillance. Its height is his protection. And of course, the stealth elements of the craft. Iran shot down a drone that entered airspace. All right. So a few things. When Donald Trump was asked about this, when they finally got the opportunity to talk about this is what Donald Trump said.
Fortunately, that drone was unarmed. There was no man in it, and it was over international waters, clearly over international waters, but we didn't have a man or woman in the drone. We had nobody in the drone.
Are you still open?
It would have made a big difference, let me tell you. Would have made a big difference. I have a feeling, I may be wrong, and I may be right, but I'm right a lot. I have a feeling that it was a mistake.
I've argued that what the president does is often held to political wins. That Donald Trump running his presidency saying he doesn't want a war, he doesn't want to get into a conflict, all of this type of stuff, I suspect to some degree he meant that. However, I think he also meant with this notion of squeezing these places and a degree of brinksmanship that was included in this. In many respects, it doesn't really matter what the president wants. The president can be captured by political wins. And in this case, Donald Trump has done what he could to squeeze Iran, putting in Bolton, Pompeo, pulling out the JCPOA, increasing military forces in that region of the world. And the media is not asking the main question. Would the United States, that has taken a policy of aggression towards Iran, would that same government run surveillance planes over Iran? And if the surveillance plane that the U.S. military was flying over Iran gets shot down, what would be the response of the United States and the military in talking to the press about that drone that was shot down? What would they say? Would they come up and say, yeah, we're flying in Iranian territory? Or would they say this plane was flying in international waters and Iran shot it down, unprovoked? I suspect number two. Does the media ask that basic question? Not so much. Not so much. I asked that basic question, and the first thing I started to do when I heard Donald Trump say the term international waters, I guarantee you it was international waters. I'll tell you that much. My first response is Donald Trump lies through his teeth as easily as breathing. And my first response is, was it really international waters? I wanted to hear from Iran. What did Iran say? Well, Iran's foreign minister, who's on my Twitter account, said this. At 12:14, a U.S. drone took off from UAE in stealth mode and violated Iranian airspace. It was targeted at 4:05 at the coordinates, and he gives them near Ku-e-Mobark. We retrieved sections of the U.S. military drone in our territorial waters where it was shot down. He shows the map. Now, do I immediately believe what Iran is saying? No, I don't. But do I automatically believe what the United States is telling me? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We have escalated month after month after month, escalated even when all of our allies have been against us and what we were doing. We have continued to escalate. And now a drone is shot down. And the president of the United States that lies as easily as breathing, has no credibility. The country that screamed weapons of mass destruction in Iraq is saying, trust us. Trust us. You can believe our word. It was in international waters. Iran is saying it was in our territory. Again, I think the basic question is, would the United States fly a stealth aircraft over Iran if it was looking, let's say, for either military targets or just for the sake of spying or surveillance? Yeah. If that stealth craft was shot down, would the United States own up to the fact that it was flying over Iran? No, I don't believe it would. So the fact that this craft gets shot down and the United States comes out and says it was over international waters, would I automatically believe? Again, the answer is no. Would Donald Trump lie about it? Yes, he would. Yes, he would. Different question. Donald Trump in this press conference is being very overt in downplaying this incident. It is very clear that Donald Trump doesn't necessarily want to increase provocation with Iran in this, in which case he's downplaying this. If the United States was flying this drone over Iranian territory and this drone was shot down in good faith, would Donald Trump then turn around and say it was international waters, but. And on the second point, when he comes up and put that, but it was an accident, but it was a mistake, which is essentially, again, trying to downplay this particular incident, trying to deflate, de-escalate tensions. And the president doing this, the president seems to be trying to give a signal that he doesn't want this to go further, at least from this particular incident. Would the media let him get away with that? It is unclear to know. He's filled his, you could say, his entourage full of people who hate Iran's guts and wants the toppling of their government. Bolton, Pompeo, various elements of the military complex. He said himself, there are people around me that really love this thing of war, given this kind of indication that he is not one of them. What is going to happen here? Now, the fact that he's trying to downplay gets across some indication that he doesn't want this to go further in the sense of escalation. At one point, Donald Trump even said, call me. What Donald Trump is comically bad at is politics. What he doesn't realize is once you pull out of an agreement, that other countries also have politics that country also has to deal with. That country can't just call you because you've humiliated the left wing or the moderates within that country when you pull out of the deal. And now you've escalated and you have nowhere to go. Are you going to, let's say, eat a bit of crow, de-escalate, and try to engage? Or are you going to continue along this path, which is going to lead to further and further escalation and conflict? And I say this, and I guess I'm halting in saying this when I say escalation and conflict. That sounds weird to say it that way, but I don't know where you go from here. Part of the reason that the media is asking Trump, are you going to do an airstrike, is because Donald Trump has threatened to destroy that country. And if Donald Trump, after giving that list that Pompeo gave of all of Iran's grievances and everything else, then what is the media to think? From the administration perspective, Iran has been having unprovoked provocation all the way through. And according to the media, They put a bomb on a tanker, even though the tanker captain completely disputes what the United States is saying. So the media is stuck with the situation of based on what your administration is saying, even though you don't necessarily have any credibility, based on what you're saying. This is now another provocation. What are you going to do? 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 Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'm putting multiple articles below so you can see it for yourself, including the Iranian minister's response to this. One of the points that these guys made was that, well, one, this was an unprovoked attack. That's laughable. Two, that this was a high-end aircraft and that they were somewhat shocked that the aircraft was shot down, meaning they didn't realize Iran had the capabilities that they had, which is also a little disconcerting. Disconcerting that they didn't know that. Disconcerting that they underestimated their opponent. Not disconcerting that they had the capabilities to defend themselves. And last was the price tag. It's so expensive. The military kind of made this point that this is not a throwaway aircraft. This aircraft costs more than F-35. This is not something we could throw away. I suppose that the reason he was saying that is saying that we can't just let this slide. You're under civilian control. It's not for you to let something slide or not. You're under civilian control. When the Russian aircraft was shot down by the Israeli missile, if Russia had turned around and struck Israel, people would have been shocked by that. Vladimir Putin found a way to save face in that prospect. If you in that situation. If you notice, Donald Trump did two things in that interview. One, it was a mistake. Let's de-escalate. And two, if there was a person in this, he has to look strong, even in claiming that it was a mistake and backing away. Look, whether it was in Iranian territory or not, it is to some degree stuck with the person to know or to come away with their opinion of this particular issue. Meaning, you're stuck with the U.S. saying one thing, Iran saying another thing. You stuck in the middle of trying to discern who's more right. It is impossible for you to know one way or the other on who's right. I would say use your good sense. Does the United States fly spying operations? Yes. Do those spying operations enter into enemy territory? Yes. If those spying operations with these drones get shot down, would the United States own up to the fact that they were flying in other people's territory? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe not. And that's where you're left with. Iran is pulling down wreckage in their territory, which lends some credibility to their particular story, even though the trajectory of a craft after it was shot may, I don't know. I do know we've been escalating. I do know that. I do know they have pieces of it. Or at the very least, they're claiming to have pieces of it. And I don't trust Trump in this particular situation. I do believe he doesn't want a war per se, but I don't believe he told me the truth that they were flying a spy plane in Iranian territory. They had no business being in Iranian territory. I do believe if Trump knew it was a clean shoot, he wouldn't necessarily want to go to war for something that was a clean shoot. By the same token, he might lie and say it was international waters. This is the position that I'm stuck in with a president that lies constantly. And if I'm being honest, with a president that's been escalating in an unprovoked way against Iran. You are also stuck in this situation of trying to discern what's more true. And I'll leave that up to you. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. And someone sends a thing at the last minute. Good analysis, Jamarl Rouge. Thank you, Rouge. I did this video once and I hated that video. I looked at it, I watched it, and I was like, God, this video is horrible. Let me get rid of this. I don't want a horrible video up, even though there are some. I'll end this here, though. Look, guys, I've said this before. What the president wants matters sometimes less than political wins. Donald Trump has come into office. He's gotten rid of the JCPOA unprovoked. He's increased troops in every region of the world, again, unprovoked. The rest of the world has been against him on this because they knew that the deal was working. And the last thing that they wanted was another war in that region of the world. We said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They weren't. We claimed that there were chemical weapon strikes in Syria. At the very least, the last few, they weren't able to validate. And not just able to validate, were outright fraudulent. And you look at one war after the next, and these wars have been dodgy at best. And here we are again. I'm not saying that you should take Iran's word for it at face value. I'm just saying you shouldn't take America's word at face value when it doesn't have a good track record on these issues. Progressive Voice keeps attacking you, Jamal. Ari Baccarin. I don't think I care. Like, honestly, somebody else said that. It's like, have you ever had dealings with a child? Like it's that. If I'm being brutally honest, the U.S. intel agencies want war with Iran. They always get their way. So if you remember, Donald Trump kind of made this point too, that the intelligence services or there are people around him that definitely want war. Assuming that he's not one of them. Him downplaying this, I don't think I've seen a president do this before. And so I would accept that as him not necessarily wanting to get further involved in his way of de-escalation. By the same token, he has a lot of hawks around him. So we'll see. We will see. All right, guys. I'll end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. And Progressive Voice, I don't think I all that much care about. He begged me to come on my show. This was maybe a year ago. And he was like, yo, man, can I come on your show? I have the email. And I laughed at the email. Not just laughed at the email. I think I bought the email on the show and derided the email because I thought it was funny. This child wanted to do a show together. I didn't want to do a show with him then. I don't want to do a show with him now. I invited him on the show if he wanted to have a debate. He was too scared to have a debate. At that point, there was nothing else to say. Like somebody who was too terrified to have a conversation of ideas doesn't warrant conversation. So I'll end this here. Thanks all. Bye-bye. And